3 counties, 24 cities, working together, accomplishing more than any of us could alone. Whether your roots run generations deep, or you recently moved to Greater Portland, you are a part of Metro, the nation's only regional government elected by the people. Planning for the future, preserving what we love. Let's keep our region thriving for decades to come.
I'm Micah Reese, and I'm the Dive Safety Officer here at the Oregon Zoo, and safety is a big part of my job. Some of the things we consider here is diver safety. I'm out here at the Oregon Zoo, and you're at the Metro Regional Center. The council chamber is located on the 3rd floor of this building. In the event of fire or fire alarm, please exit through the door in the northeast corner of the room, go down the steps to the 2nd floor, and exit through the main entrance by the reception desk and gather in the courtyard outside the entrance. In the event of a medical or fire emergency, please call 911 and notify the security agent at the front desk. The nearest defibrillator is mounted on the steps leading from the reception desk down to Grand Avenue. Thank you.
Okay, we'll declare quorum and call the council business meeting to order. I'll now ask our clerk, Georgia Langer, to call the roll for attendance.
Yes. Counselor Nolan.
Hello, here.
Counselor Rosenthal.
Present.
Counselor Gonzalez.
Present. I'll only be here for about 30 minutes, by the way.
Thank you. Counselor Lewis will be here shortly.
I'm present.
Oh, Counselor Lewis is here virtually. Council President Peterson will be here shortly. Counselor Simpson is excused, and Deputy Council President Wong.
Present. Thank you. Okay, we'll open up for public communications on non-agenda items. Georgia, could you please describe to the audience our procedures that we will use for public communications?
Absolutely. If you are testifying in person, please sign up by filling out a blue card in the back of the room and bringing it up to me. If you are testifying on Zoom or by phone, please sign up by using the raise hand function in the reactions or more menus, or by dialing *9. When it is your turn to testify, I'll call your name or phone number. For those on Zoom, click accept to be promoted to a panelist. Your Zoom window will close briefly before you rejoin as a panelist. You can turn on your camera if you'd like. Testimony is limited to 3 minutes, and the timer begins when you begin speaking. Please state your name for the record before testifying. You do not need to give your physical address. And Deputy Council President Wong, we do have 3 people who have signed up to testify on non-agenda items today. We will bring up to the table, and if the folks in the back could shoot an angle at the camera here, that would be lovely. Thank you. First one up is Ron Bunch. You can sit in any 4 of those seats.
Good morning, Metro Council. Thank you for having me here today. My testimony is about Metro Council's expression of support for Senate Bill 1586. I've worked in the Metro region and in the state for about 4 decades as a planner. Multiple comprehensive plans, land use plans, public facility plans. I've worked in transportation all the way across the planning and public administration venue. So I would like to express my concern about the depth of harm that's been done by Metro's support of HB 1586. You've probably heard about a lot of other issues, but I want to address 2 that I think have been left out so far. When I first came to the Metro region, the West Side Bypass was a big deal. And there was a compromise reached with LUTRAC, the Land Use, Transportation, Air Quality position. The consequence was West Side Light Rail, which in 1998 cost almost $1 billion in local and federal funds, and it would be about $2 billion today. So just doing the arithmetic on Senate Bill 1586, consequences of expanding the urban growth boundary, From a transportation impact perspective, and the proposed job numbers, the square footage of industrial land use, I came to the conclusion that almost the equivalent capacity of Highway 26 would have to be added to the transportation system. 30 to 50,000, even more, average daily trips, and that just includes employees. So what this action does, it breaks the foundational principle of the regional transportation plan. Not only is the harm done to the land use planning aspect, the decades and decades of compromises made and trust built, but it also breaks your transportation system plan. It throws the principles of Blue Track away. So furthermore, diving deep into Hillsboro's own water system master plan, which, as you know, has become really important for its industrial and population growth. Just with preliminary investigation, it's found that most likely that Washington County cannot provide adequate water to such a large industrial tech-centered project, even with the water from the Willamette River project. Now, this is even more pertinent because water supplies from all sources in the Willamette River Basin will be further curtailed as climate change advances. And I spent a lot of time on this when I had retired. So we have two stressed systems, the water system regionally, and then also the transportation systems that you need to pay attention to in this regard because they're all very much interrelated. So thank you for this opportunity.
Alrighty, next we have Nellie McAdams.
Deputy President Wong, Metro Councilors, my name is Nellie McAdams and I am here as a constituent to express my extreme concern at the process and substance of Metro's recent support for Senate Bill 1586. In terms of process, it appears that Metro came to this decision after staff and maybe a councilor reached out to a quorum of members outside of a public meeting to count their votes. Oregon's serial meeting law was updated in 2023 to be much more stringent. It applies to meetings held separately between members of an elected body or their intermediaries, and it applies to any discussion or communication that is part of a decision-making process. A decision to publicly support and dedicate staff time to advocate for a bill at the legislature is likely subject to serial meetings law. If so, Metro's decision to support SB 1586 and its policy for getting approvals are in violation. One reason that bodies of government should make their decisions in the public eye is so the public can give input on the justifications for those decisions. For example, I heard that there is a Metro legal opinion stating that rural reserve land in the SB 1586 was always urban reserve. I have not found this legal opinion and I do not know if it was shared publicly, but regarding the opinion itself, Washington County tried to designate the land as urban reserve, but the Court of Appeals found that designation to be illegal. Just because the county tried to break the law does not make their original decision legal, correct, or binding. I do not know how to respond to Metro Attorney's opinion because it was discussed behind closed doors when Metro Council members effectively voted to support SB 1586. That's the problem. I have also heard it implied that elected officials who do not sign the grand bargain 12 years ago should not be subject to it. I should not have to say this, but elected officials are obliged to uphold agreements made by the body of government that they're elected to serve, even if they didn't personally sign them. Regarding the substance of Metro's support for SB 1586, it's an abdication of Metro's responsibilities without any showing of need for land, ability to pay, or production of jobs. First, there's no need for land. Metro has a 20-year surplus of almost 4,000 acres of industrial land inside its UGB, including 500 acres in Hillsboro. Hillsboro had the opportunity last year to request industrial land and did not because it did not need it. If Hillsboro wants jobs, it could better utilize the lands that it already has. Metro must demonstrate the need for UGB or an urban reserve. And just because the city can't automatically develop on the urban reserve does not excuse Metro from requiring a showing of need for that designation in the first place. Second, there's no detailed information on the cost of this expansion or how it will be paid. All that's been provided is a 6-page development prospectus that shows the city might break even in 35 years. And this does not include tax breaks proposed by this bill or the governor's bill. Last, there's no guarantee that the plan will result in jobs. At Hillsborough City Council meeting on Wednesday, their staff admitted that the jobs created by the so-called Jobs Act need not be local or even in the U.S., and that data centers will be permitted if they are accessory to a business in a foreign country. This land would be used for low-job data centers. While Metro might want to tax data centers specifically, you don't have the authority to do so. Metro does have the authority to prevent wasteful use of land and has abdicated that duty here. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Aaron Nichols.
Good afternoon. My name is Aaron Nichols. I'm a farmer just north of Hillsborough. And I want to say first, until last week, I felt that Metro was probably the best planning agency we had in Washington County. The numbers are better, the follow-through is better, and certainly the outreach is better than anyone else I'm used to working with. However, I saw that Metro is now supporting 1586, or at least a majority of councilors have said they are. And that I find both ridiculous and honestly a stab in the back. This ignores the body's promises, it ignores your own studies, and it very clearly contravenes the legislative principles number 10 and 12. Councilor Gonzalez, I saw you at the hearing for the bill, and you told me that Metro would like to help farmers in my area, so I'm here to say what I said to you there. If this bill passes, especially with Metro's compromise, there is no way for Metro to be helpful to farmers, and honestly, no real way to be helpful in the region. If Metro is willing to ignore its own numbers, you can see Robert Liberty's testimony in OLIS, ignore its legislative principles. Number 10 states we don't support legislative decisions that bring UGBs, land into UGBs, as this does. And number 12 is it only supports land coming to UGBs with proven need, which there is none. And you're willing to blithely break a 50-year promise that's made to all of us in the region, 12 or 14 years later, without consulting a single stakeholder. Then how can we trust Metro? It's entirely unclear what role you'd play. It feels like Metro is a fish weather vane just flopping whatever direction the wind is going. Without numbers that you guys yourselves trust, without engagement, what value do we bring? How can you imagine a scenario after this where Metro can come and listen to stakeholders and be believed, either on the data you present or the promises you make? Can we imagine Metro having a useful role in planning our future? In Hillsborough, we have a federal government that's uninterested in facts, sees policy as a way to serve only their own interests, and acts on behalf of the powerful against citizens it's meant to serve. We have a state government that's uninterested in keeping its promises, that crafts policy to benefit corporations over community and cuts out all their stakeholders. We have a city government that acts on its most important decisions, economic development, that's supposed to be for all of us, almost entirely in secret and at the behest of rich donors. What possible use could we have for another layer of government that's untrustworthy, refuses to believe in facts or precedent, and serves the wealthy and powerful? We can take care of our own politicians, or at least we can try. But Metro should probably just stay in Portland, maybe help buy a new Blazers stadium. It does not seem that land use planning or promises is something we can manage here. Thank you.
Thank you. And I've not received any other blue cards. I don't see any hands raised in the audience. Deputy Council President.
Okay, great, thank you. We'll close public testimony and move on to our presentations. This is item 3.1, results of the Accountability Hotline Case 507 audit. Our first item today is a presentation from a Metro auditor detailing the results of an audit conducted in response to a complaint directed of a hotline. Auditor Evans is here to share the background and results of that audit. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, Deputy Council President Wong and Metro councilors. Appreciate the opportunity to present the audit of Accountability Hotline Case 507. It was published earlier this week. The audit was initiated based on an anonymous report to the Accountability Hotline in August 2025. The hotline is administered by my office to provide the public and employees with an anonymous way to report concerns. The report that this audit was based on is alleged that a former zoo employee had a financial interest in a contract with Metro and profited from it. This audit was initiated to evaluate the accuracy of the allegations and determine if stronger controls were needed to prevent or detect conflicts of interest. The audit found that the former zoo employee violated Metro's conflict of interest disclosure policy and may have violated Metro code and the employee ethics policy. The former employee was directly involved in awarding the contract and managed it on behalf of the zoo. The contract was for $120,000 from May 2024 to June 2027. The contractor received just over $30,000 for work completed between May and September of 2024. The contract was active as of October 25. The former employee was also associated with the business that the contract was made with. They were the president and registered agent of the business in Oregon until the business was dissolved in January 2021. The business was later reincorporated in Washington in February 2021, and the former employee became the registered agent for the contractor in Oregon in June of 2024. And just for everybody's awareness, a registered agent is an individual who is responsible for accepting delivery of legal documents on behalf of a business. State law, Metro Code, and Metro's employee ethics policy prohibit public employees from using their position for financial benefit or to avoid financial costs. Conflict of interest disclosures are one of the ways that ethics requirements are managed. The former employee's lack of disclosure about their association with the contractor was the cause of the conflict of interest. We found that they did not disclose their association with the business in two potential conflict disclosure processes. One, which is done every year, where all Metro employees are asked to sign a form or disclose whether they have an actual or potential conflict of interest with anybody that does work with Metro. There's also a requirement for some contract types and some employees when they are involved in awarding contracts. Neither of those processes detected the conflict of interest or were disclosed by the former employee. While Metro's conflict of interest disclosure processes are helpful, they would benefit from improvements. The audit found that disclosures related to contract awards were not required for all reward types, and some employees were not required to complete them. For example, contracts awarded through non-competitive processes like direct awards, special procurements, and exceptions to procurement rules were not required to disclose any conflicts they had before participating in that award process. We also learned that some employees who regularly evaluate some parts of proposals were not required to fill out disclosure forms as well. The audit also found additional verification of some suppliers would strengthen Metro's ability to detect or prevent actual or potential conflict of interest. For contracts awarded directly through non-competitive processes, Metro had less information about its suppliers, and fewer people were involved in making the contract award. These conditions can increase the risk of fraud and abuse. Requesting business registration information and verifying it in online databases is one way that Metro could learn about its suppliers at lower cost. For example, the Secretary of State in all states in the nation provide online databases where you can search business registration information and see who's involved with those businesses. We also found that the IRS provides a free online tool to max tax information, and that's another resource that Metro could use to verify suppliers that come through non-competitive processes. During the audit, we also learned that Metro does not have a process to remove inactive contractors from its accounting system. We found that there was over 18,000 active suppliers in the system, and so that big pool of suppliers always increases the chance that something could go wrong. We found that about 59% of those suppliers were created more than 16 years ago, which indicates that probably Metro wasn't doing business with them, but they were still listed as an active supplier. Metro is in the process of replacing its accounting system, and we found that this was a good time to go through and reduce the number of suppliers in the system to reduce the amount of data that needs to be transferred to the new system. For all of these reasons, we recommended 10 recommendations. 2 of them were to address the actual conflict of interest. 5 were focused on improvements to Metro's disclosure policies and processes, and the other 3 were designed to increase Metro's knowledge of the suppliers that come through non-competitive processes. That concludes my presentation. Be happy to answer any questions you have, or you can wait for the management response.
I think so.
Great, thank you. Auditor Evans, is there a management response?
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to thank you, Auditor, for the thorough audit and comprehensive set of recommendations. Management agrees with the auditor's recommendations to remedy the specific conflict of interest that was daylighted in the hotline audit. We have already closed the contract in question and taken the recommended action to document that in the personnel records.
Management also agrees with the auditor's recommendation to improve existing conflict of interest processes. In response, we've taken several actions to improve policy compliance, increase supervisory responsibilities, and strengthen overall employee awareness. That has included updating our employee ethics policy to more effectively communicate the interconnectedness between each of our specific ethics policies. And those individual ethics policies included nepotism, outside employment, and acceptable use of resources, which we updated all of them to just generally improve employee awareness around roles and responsibilities. The conflict of interest policy was also updated to expand guidance on the disclosure process. That included clear escalation processes for reviewing and managing disclosures. And it also enhanced requirements to document actions taken to remedy potential conflicts of interest. We developed a suite of dedicated resources, including an updated annual required training on ethics for all employees, supervisor guides, and a one-stop MetroNet page. That will all be rolled out later this month, agency-wide. We have a communications plan in place. And then lastly, policy record keeping and retention processes were improved, including maintaining all forms in a location accessible to department directors, human resources, and Office of the Metro Attorney. To improve the conflict of interest process for procurements, management agrees that individuals making contract award decisions should complete a statement of independence and non-conflict of interest form, and we've implemented that requirement as of late January. We also agree that additional research into new suppliers may reduce risks to Metro, and we are actively reviewing all of our policies and procedures to ensure that all suppliers undergo a consistent review. Management also believes, though, that this issue is most effectively mitigated through training for managers, improved policy compliance, and the utilization of controls to identify any potential vendor payments to employees. Management will be reviewing the list of suppliers as part of our enterprise resource planning system project, and we'll be taking that opportunity to help clear all of the outdated supplier information from our system, and the timeline for that transition is July 2027. Once again, on behalf of management, I want to thank the auditor for the thorough audit.
Great, thank you, Holly. Let's see, any other questions or comments?
I just have one question.
Oh, Councilor Rosenthal.
My head, Councilor Lewis was up first, I guess. I thought my hand was up.
Okay, Councilor Lewis.
Okay, sure. I appreciate the work that was done of both bringing forward this as a hotline case, but also seemingly the work that had already been underway by management. So I guess my question is first and foremost around if we have a culture where there were corrective or lines of transparency within the department or within our kind of zoo infrastructure, or if the hotline was the only remedy in this case. And either of you can take the, for remedy for reporting, not for correcting the actions.
Thank you for the question, Councilor Lewis. I'm not sure I understand what remedy is referring to. I think the accountability hotline is intended to really provide an outside resource and another line of communication where information can surface. The way that we deal with those complaints is that if they involve human resource issues, we pass those along to human resources for investigation. If there's a structural issue, like in this case, where we see some weaknesses generally across the processes, then we will take that on as a performance audit and kind of look systematically at that. In terms of the remedy, I don't know if I can speak to other remedies.
Yeah, I guess in a healthy culture, I would say if you're an employee and you see something going wrong, either ethically or safety-wise, a normal form of recourse is to go to your supervisor, manager, or director, and to not have to engage an outside hotline. So in this case, was the hotline used because there's nothing else there in terms of a reporting and accountability structure, or was this just used because it's well advertised and available and potentially an easier call than to call out or call in a coworker to somebody you know and report to?
I don't think I can speak to the person whose motivations for reporting and using the hotline. I can tell you that my office receives complaints in a variety of different ways, some anonymous, some not anonymous, some through the hotline, some directly. We've had notes slipped under our door, we get mail. My sense is that if the auditor's office is being engaged, it's likely because somebody feels like their concerns have not been addressed at the appropriate level in a previous communication, but I can't speak to that.
I'm happy to expand a bit on the management perspective on this. I think that the benefit of the accountability hotline is that there is no wrong door. We want to have plenty of avenues for folks to come forward. The zoo is certainly complying with all of our procurement and conflict of interest policies. But as clearly shared earlier in our response, some of our policies were stagnant. I think importantly, we also had more of an annual process. So creating a culture that encourages folks to disclose information at any time that their situation may change, and that there is no punitive response to that. Strengthening our supervisors' ability to understand how to detect when a situation may change, I think is going to create not just a more transparent culture, but a more accountability-driven culture. But the zoo was certainly following all of the guidelines we had. We just had an opportunity to improve them.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, I'm most concerned. I think this is another data point in the culture of the zoo needing some continued love and attention. I'm not saying that we shouldn't have a hotline. We absolutely need to have the hotline. But I do think that it should be just as easy to call and leave an anonymous report as it is to speak with your manager and know that that manager is going to, one, be able to protect you, and two, have your back, and three, take it seriously.
Absolutely, thank you.
And Councilor Lewis, if I might just add on, I think it's important to note that the zoo was not following the disclosure process as it was outlined. The audit, I didn't go into this level of detail, but the audit details that the forms that we looked at were often not signed by the employee or not signed by the employee and the manager. So that looks like a filling out a form and putting it away, and nobody may be looking at it or nobody even realizing what the purpose is. That to me indicates a lack of awareness or follow through from management of knowing why we're doing an annual disclosure process and what the appropriate protocols are to follow when you do that process. So to say that the zoo followed all the protocols is not accurate.
Yeah, I think that is absolutely fair. I think that what we determined was that we didn't have strong oversight in general. And so was it followed completely? Probably not.
Okay.
So appreciate that clarification, Auditor Evans.
I do think that, I read the audit last night, I do think that your recommendation, not only that we keep those forms up to date and take them seriously, but have them stored in a place that is accessible to departments as well as to HR, as well as to legal, makes complete sense.
Councilor Rosenthal.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to say, first of all, I appreciate the thoroughness of the audit. I'm glad we caught this conflict potential or this real conflict and brought it to light so that we can avoid it in the future. And I appreciate the management response, which agreed with all those. And the only question I really have is, my understanding is 10 recommendations and there was agreement on all of those. Is the timeline for the final recommendation, number 10, that's going to have to wait until we have this new reporting system in place? Is that appropriate in your view?
Thank you for the response or the question, Councilor Rosenthal. I think from my perspective, when you think about, some of the suppliers in the system are 25 or more years old, that to me indicates a lack of attention to this issue. But for the Enterprise Resource Management Project, I wonder what the response would have been to that recommendation, whether the effort would be made to go through the supplier list and remove suppliers. So I think having that forcing function of knowing that you're going to have to migrate data to a new system is a great way to do it. I think the better control is to have a process in place so that you go through and proactively deactivate suppliers and don't let them build up over time, because whoever gets the fun job of going through and making the call on how you take those suppliers out, that's a huge body of work for somebody to take on. And if it was done in a regular way, it would be a much smaller body of work, and there would be a lot less subjectivity in terms of knowing when and how to do that. So creating the regular practice, to me, is more important than waiting until a new system comes around every 25 years to clean up your accounting system.
Yeah, you're right. Processes like that, if they get behind, they take a lot of effort to undo. But if you keep at it regularly, it makes it a lot easier. You just have to have a process and criteria for deactivating contractors.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I think we certainly have culture and internal systems to clean up and work on. But maybe just for Carrie, is there any like civil recourse or accountability that we can have in this situation? I know of a employee in question is no longer employed here, but are we just done, or are there other options to look at?
Yeah, thank you, Council Plug. I can certainly look into that and report back to council and give you some legal advice as to what potential options are.
Okay, excellent, thank you. Okay, thank you, Auditor Evans.
Thanks for the time, appreciate it.
Okay, we're gonna move on to our consent agenda. We have 2 items on today's consent agenda, which is item 4.1, consideration of the February 5th, 2026 council meeting minutes, and item 4.2, which is consideration of a February 12th, 2026 council minutes. Can I get a motion on the consent agenda?
Move consent.
I'll second.
Okay, it is moved by Councilor Lewis and seconded by Councilor Rosenthal. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Councilor Nolan. Councilor Nolan is signaling a thumbs up, so we'll take that as an aye. And the council meeting minutes are approved. Okay, we have Chief Operating Officer Communications. Holly, do you have any
Just a
updates for
couple.
us?
First, wanted to take a moment to congratulate our Expo team for another successful Pacific Northwest Sportsman Show. It ran from February 11th to the 15th, and it is an annual tradition at the Expo Center. It's a huge event that draws outdoor enthusiasts from across the region, and we had over 44,200 attendees this year, which is about a 5% increase from last year. So that's exciting, and just kudos to the team. It was a ton of work. Also want to just quickly encourage folks to take advantage of some of Parks and Nature's activities after the last kind of cold week we had. February 20th, there's going to be 2 sessions of fly fishing basics at Blue Lake Regional Park. And there will also be lessons there to cover basic fly casting, knot tying, etc. And the last thing we have is an event at Glendoveer Nature Trail tomorrow, 10:30 to 1:30. It's called Stewardship Day, and it's around planting native plants and spreading mulch. So fun for the whole family. That's all I've got.
Awesome, thank you. Let's move on to Councilor Communications. Let's start with, we'll go Councilor Rosenthal.
Yeah, a couple things. First of all, the one thing is we will be, as some people know, that we're in a period for earmark for transportation funding from our congressional delegation. We will be preparing a letter and hopefully submitting it for council approval for support for Wilsonville for earmark funding for the Boone Bridge. That letter is in the draft form. And then I just want to note that I hope I would like to get an update on the first oversight meeting for the zoo bond.
Great. Councilor Lewis.
Sure, thank you. I just wanted to lift up the work of our Parks Department in the community choice bucket area. They held the 3rd of 4 kind of final engagement sessions in Milwaukee last night. I was able to pop in. Very good participation. I hope nobody called the fire marshal. We had too many people in the room. That's a good problem to have. And also in good parks news, Representative Bynum is bringing home one of her congressionally directed funds, in $850,000 to the Kellogg Dam project, where you'll recall we put $10 million of Metro money in. So I was there to help receive the giant cardboard check last night. So more money for that project to come, hopefully from the feds.
Thank you, that's great news. Just for me, we had our kickoff of the Zoo Bond Oversight Committee last night at the zoo. It was, I think, a great kickoff event. We had about 14 or 15 new oversight members. So there were some introductions, and then we walked through some of the initial projects that are coming up, a lot of great questions. So really looking forward to working with this group over the next years to make sure the bond is implemented in a way that builds public trust. So thank you. Okay, well, saying no further discussion, the council meeting is adjourned to an executive session. The executive session will be held pursuant to ORS 192.6602F to consider information or records that are exempt by law from public inspection, and 2H, to consult with legal counsel concerning legal rights and duties regarding current litigation or litigation likely to be filed, and 2E, to conduct deliberations with persons designated by the governing body to negotiate real property transactions. Our next regular meeting is scheduled for February 24th at 10:30 a.m.